Rampage.
Alright guys, so that percussion sound you just heard is what I'm going to show you guys how to make. It's really easy to do. There's several ways to get these kind of drops and percussion sounds. You can synthesize them. Those are really easy to synthesize. And you can sample them and just transpose it up a few octaves, and you have a, like for example, if you transpose a snare or a tom by a few octaves, you get this really cool like punchy clicky thing, so it just sounds really cool. So for some of you more advanced guys that already know how to do this, I'm just going to show you really quick how I make it. And for you beginner types, stick around because I'll go into more detail. So really quickly, the really key way to get these big sounds is just to multiband compress it and add on a big fat reverb. So I'll go over the reverb and multiband compression right now, and then I'll go into explaining what I do with the sampler or simpler or whatever DAW you're in, that sampler. They all do the same thing, so no need to sweat. So on my reverb, I like to kind of EQ it a bit. If you think of the input processing as an EQ, that's a really good mindset to how you can craft the input of what goes into the reverb, and then the output sounds way cooler. So I kind of like, on this one I filter this on the low cut by 600 hertz around there, and on the high cut around 3.5k. Those aren't my exact numbers, but that's rounded up. And so actually let me just solo this and play this. So I'm going to turn this off, and you can hear what this sounds like by default, pretty much. And now I'm going to add on my my cuts. Much cleaner sound that's gonna fit in my mix way better, way nicer. Very cool. And I just brought down the diffuse a bit, and brought up the reflect a bit. It's staying pretty much at 50%. It's at 52% for dry wet, and my decay time is at 1.17. So I don't like those obnoxiously loud reverbs. I kind of like my reverbs to be subtle and just give space. That's all I want from a reverb, is just a space sound. If you want the reverb sound, then go for it, but I just want to give it some room to breathe. And with multiband compression here, this is just a stock Ableton one. I just like to kind of boost up the range just a bit. I kind of do it by ear, so you should do that by ear and just boost it until you get a nice sound, and then adjust your outputs if you need to. And so last but not least, or that's actually the first thing I do, is I open up a simpler, which is the Ableton one that I like to use, so it's simpler, and I just drag in a sample. So pretty much I just, excuse me, that's my phone. I just drag any sample from anywhere, and you can just drag it in, hold it, and drop it. That's pretty much all you have to do. And if your sample kind of starts somewhere later, if you're using a loop, you can kind of start it where you need to, and then also kind of, what you can do with this sample that I like is you can start wherever you want. If you're using a loop or something like that that's kind of long and you just want to get a sound out of that, and then you can kind of just cut around it and get that one sample, so you don't have to use the entire thing. But since this is just kind of like a one shot, I'm just going to open it up all the way. Make sure you have snap on just so it gets the beginning of the transient. And I like to add a little bit of spread on this. You guys should remember, if you're getting low volume or not enough amplitude, that's because by default this particular simpler likes to start you off at negative 12 dB. So your low volume is just because of this. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to quickly just make a new one. So I'm just going to press Shift Command M. Let's see. Oh, it's actually Shift Command T. And I'm just going to swap this for a simpler. I'm going to now just recreate all this from scratch real quick. So I'm just going to drag my MIDI so I don't have to do that part of it. Really, option, there you go. And now I'm just going to drag in samples. So I'm going to drag in just whatever the hell this is. I don't even know. I'm going to click on snap, start it right here. So this is what I was trying to say, but I didn't have a visual representation to show you what I meant. So see how this sample kind of starts a little late. I can just go start with snap on, and then I can get really close to where it starts. And by default with this sampler, you'll to get the original sound, or the original like untransposed version of your sample, that's gonna always be at C3. So that's what the original sample sounds like, and it'll always start off on C3 with this sampler. So I don't want that. I'm going to transpose it up to where I want it to be, and I'm going to kind of fix it up and have it the way I had it before. And if you use Ableton's Spectrum, you can also kind of tune it. So as you can see, I'm kind of tuning it to where I want it to be. And this is really high up. This is like 3 transposed octaves. So that's really, really transposed. And let's see. Let's get rid of this now. I also like to add a little bit of spread on this, so it's not completely mono. If you don't want to use this, you can use Ableton's utility to add some width to that, but just compensate with the gain for adding the width. And next thing I do is I go to my multiband compressor, just because it works. These are a lot better for these kind of percussion sounds as opposed to just compressing the whole thing. So I'm just going to solo it and listen to it by range, and then I'll just kind of see how I like it. Let's see. So I kind of have what I want out of that. Now I'm going to drop in a reverb, and I'm going to just low cut it right away, and I'm going to open it up all the way, and I'm going to kind of shape it after I kind of figure out how big I want this reverb. Okay, so I just kind of was playing around, see how I wanted things. I turned down my pre-delay so that the reverb just starts right away. Kind of was playing around with size, kind of liked it around there. Decay time is pretty much where it is by default, just slightly higher. I like to bring down diffuse, because to me that's kind of like that white noise room sound, so I don't really like that. I kind of like starting with this all the way down. And I kind of find where I like it. Dry wet I left at halfway because this is a percussion sound, so I kind of want it to be in that big space. Reflect, I just brought that up a bit too. Now I'm just going to craft this. Now I'm going to see how it sounds with everything else. And now I'm going to compare it to my original. So that is how easy it is to make one of these kind of leads. Again, toms are really good for these kind of percussion sounds, and since this one's kind of lacking a little bit of low end, obviously because I transposed it so much, then I layer in just some silent bass into it. You know, silent is really good and really easy to make these kind of bass sounds. It's just playing the same thing, but just in a lower octave, and together it just sounds much better. You know, works. I mean, if you're not gonna add in or layer in a bass, then just make your kick way bigger. So that's kind of a rule of mixing too. You know, just select what you make big. Not everything can be big and loud, you know. So for example, I'm gonna make this thing, right, my percussion sound really big, kick a little bit quieter, so it all fits in the same space. So if you guys like this, like, subscribe, comment. We do daily videos when we can, but we upload a lot. And any questions, leave that in the comments. And thanks guys for watching.